So hopefully I'm live now. I haven't tried this before, but wanted to give everyone a channel update here at 6 months into the channel's life. Of course, I picked a horrible day to be doing this. We're just now getting the news out of Minneapolis and seeing the violence there. But the horrors persist, and so do I. So maybe talking about my little clown show here will deprive the world of some of the evil it needs to keep going. I wanted to give everyone an update as to how things are going with the channel here at 6 months. Started the channel with the first video on July 7th of last year. I had really been inspired to do this by the work of John Weber and Weber Internet Thingy. If you have a chance to look up his channel on YouTube, give him a subscription and a like. He does a really great job presenting retro kind of topics and presenting just shows and movies and radio shows that he wants to share with people. And really, that's what I wanted to do too. To go back a little ways, I'd been on YouTube like terminally for probably the last 10 years. Mainly, that's my source of entertainment these days. I don't watch much network TV or cable TV anymore, even though I spent most of my life just absorbed in television. But YouTube really, I started following a lot of different people and a lot of different shows on there that I just found really entertaining, and always thought about doing something myself. The Mummy and the Monkey, Count Gore Duvall, Dr. Gangrene out of Nashville. They're all doing horror host shows on the internet. And I thought, I had always wanted to be a horror host growing up. Made a few attempts at it back in the day, but nothing really stuck with it. Thought about doing it again in 2020 when we were in lockdown for COVID. But my ideas for it were just beyond my capabilities. But this time it was different because in 2024, I was diagnosed with cancer, esophageal cancer, and went through radiation chemotherapy. And then eventually in November of 2024, I had an esophagectomy to take out my esophagus and part of my stomach and rebuild it by pulling up some of the intestines and things. And it was a hard surgery, and I got through it. In December of that year, I finally came home from the hospital, and probably like January, February, I was really just kind of all over the place trying to recuperate, mood swings, blood sugar going up and down, not really being able to eat and swallow properly, and not being able to talk. One of my vocal cords had been damaged during the operation, and I wasn't able to speak really above a whisper. But that started getting better probably about May, June of that year. And like I said, I'd seen John Weber's shows and really enjoyed those. There was another channel called RoboCat Productions that were doing the kind of compilations that I really liked. Where it was, some songs, some radio shows, some TV shows, some movies, all put together with sort of an overriding theme. But they were only doing it like maybe once a quarter or so, every 3 or 4 months. And I was thinking, well, could you do that as a weekly thing? So that's how the Howl of the Wolf movie started out, which was always going to be my horror hosted show. I had named it after a sketch on Fire Signs Theater's album. But I thought really for recuperating, it would be a good idea to start putting some of these things together and, putting them out there for people to watch and to try to enjoy. And I think it did help with the recovery, and it's helped with my voice some, just talking to people, and getting a little stronger than it had been. Really, right now, the channel is doing well. I'm not looking to monetize it or anything. So really the number of views and the minutes watched and all the, analytics and stuff don't really matter that much. I'm not presenting original material really. And, if I tried to monetize it tomorrow, probably 90% of my videos wouldn't be able to be monetized because the copyrighted material in them. And mostly the talking head shows is just me introducing it and kind of doing show and tell. It's like, here's this thing that I liked or found interesting. Let's watch it. And then I'll come back and we'll talk about it some. I don't really like seeing myself on camera that much. I'm here in my office, as you can see from behind me here. Normally I have a virtual background up so that you don't see all of this. I do have a setup at home as well that has a blank wall behind me, but my iMac at home is just an ancient beast, and it doesn't do that well handling a lot of these editing programs and other things, and handling large files. It's not really good at. So I do a lot of it here in my office and just record the talking head bits, and really trying to find things to talk about that I can show. On one of the programs, Same Show, Different Story, which is the anthology program, I'm kind of trying to go in a chronological order with those and talk about the different anthologies that are out there. And when I can't show the item, like some of the films, I've been trying to come up with different ways to do it and different ways to present the summary of the film, really. If you'll notice on the Dead of Night episode from Same Show, Different Story, I had my wife join me to do the recap, and that was a lot of fun. My wife's a professional actress, does stage, screen, voiceover. So it was really nice to have her help me out on that one. The problem there is she's a perfectionist, as she should be being a professional, and I'm not. I just, I want to do it and get it out there. And she takes weeks to prepare and do a script and everything. It comes off really well, which, I'm glad. But it takes a long time for us to collaborate on something. But hopefully I can get her back on here, a few times. But I'm coming up with some other ways of maybe making that more entertaining when I can't actually show what I'm talking about. So I have like 8 shows going that you'll notice here on Retrorama. I had kept adding them just because I kept having ideas of what I wanted to do. And really it's going, pretty well at 6 months. The video that posted today, the Same Show, Different Story that posted today, was the 199th video. So when this live stream gets posted, that'll be the 200th video. I've got 47 subscribers. I was hoping to have hit 50 just so it'd be a nice even number to talk about here. But 47 is a pretty good number, I think, for 6 months. Most of the shows I'm getting, in the low teens viewing. So usually when I post something, I'll have almost immediately 3 or 4 views. And I could probably name off the people, who are watching those. I imagine it's John Weber. It's Joe Townsell, who's on John Weber's shows a lot. Rafael Rosario, a good friend of mine from Weber Internet Thingy, and probably Chris Ruhlbach, who's an author who's also on Weber Internet Thingy. But I usually get a few views to start with, and then they sort of catch up into the teens for most of them. And Raphael has joined us in the chat. So, congratulations. I'm glad somebody came by. So thanks, Raphael. I appreciate all the help you've been with showing me different things that are available out there. And like I said, I'm pretty sure you're probably one of the people who watch my postings as soon as they go up. So I appreciate that support. But I'm finding out of all the shows, really the TV time travel is the one that's getting the most views. Some of those episodes are getting 200 or 300 views. Um, and it was one of the first ideas that I had because I was trying to think of like a website or something. There were a lot of websites that were showing sort of retro television where you could, log in and just watch TV from the 90s and 80s and 70s and stuff being streamed. But I thought it would be really interesting to sort of follow the TV guide and the TV primetime listings so that you could go, well, I want to watch Tuesday night in 1972. What would that look like? So that's what I'm trying to do with that show. Put some retro commercials in between the episodes and just see what I can find. A lot of times, all I can show is the intro of a show, and I'll put that on there. But I also try to put in the comments. And excuse me, my voice is starting to go a little already. Put the subtitles on there, saying where you can watch it at, if it's available on streaming anywhere. And so that one's been getting a lot of play. People really seem to be enjoying those. And those are out of my top 50 videos, probably all but 2 are TV time travel episodes. Yeah, thanks, Raphael. I probably should get some water here. So anyway, have that show that's doing really well. And most of the others are sort of, mediocre, like 10, 20 views for most of them. But I think people are catching up on them. I noticed that a lot of times the earlier videos, because I number all of them and they're all in playlists so people can watch them, the earlier videos are starting to get more views and it sort of trickles down to the newer ones. The ones that are the least popular, and one of the ones that's the hardest to do, is the Radio Days episodes. I know Raphael had mentioned here in the comments that he really likes the radio recreations, and I appreciate that. It's a nice long video. I think that's one reason it gets so few views, because normally they're like, between 3 and 6 hours long. And I'm trying to follow along with the radio logs. There's a website called JJ's Radio Logs that carries the radio logs from different newspapers for different days and different years. But sometimes it's hard because they just list like, a variety show and they don't tell you what show was actually on. So I'm kind of making my best guess estimate a lot of times on those. So I can't say they're a faithful recreation of old time radio, but it gives you a chance to listen to some of the shows kind of like, roughly in order as to how they were presented. So that one, doesn't get a lot of play, but I'm glad that there are people out there that like that. And I enjoy putting it together. It's probably the hardest one to put together. I really enjoy the Howl of the Wolf movie series that I'm doing, trying to come up with a theme and then find things that fit that theme and getting them all together. It's got sort of a structure to it with songs and then radio shows and then TV shows and trailers and serials and newsreels and cartoons and things like that. Excuse me. Raphael saying, will I do Mardi Gras feel for next month? Maybe. I was thinking that most of the time I did do a Halloween week and I did a Thanksgiving week and I did a Christmas week this last year. And those seemed to go pretty well, where, all the shows that week sort of had a similar theme to them. I had to stretch a lot of times to get something that would fit that theme. But yeah, Mardi Gras might be able to do that. For New Year's, the Pilot's Graveyard, where we show pilots for shows that didn't really make it, we did Time Travelers. And that one started off with Mardi Gras. That was the closest thing I could find to like a New Year's Eve show that was a pilot. So like I said, I've got the 8 shows. So basically we start the week off with Roll for Television, which was definitely inspired by the shows Roll for Sandwich, Roll for Cereal. There's another guy, I forget the name of the channel, but he does Roll It and Review It, where he basically rolls up to get his streaming service and then finds it by dice, to what he's going to review. So I was, inspired to do that, and I thought that would be a lot of fun just to randomly generate something, because I really like going through those old primetime schedules, and seeing, what was on each night. There's a podcast called TV Guidance Counselor, which I thought was a brilliant idea, where the guy basically has people go through an old issue of TV Guide and pick out what they would watch during the week and discuss it. So it's kind of that for me. And again, it shows me different things that I'd never watched in the first place. And it's just sort of a random thing that comes up. So it's, easy to do if I can find the footage, of course, to show. And then Tuesdays, I did Short Lived, which is about shows that lasted one season or less. I've kind of stretched it a few times here and there to get shows I wanted to talk about in there. But mostly it's shows, that weren't successful, that I enjoyed when I was younger and wished I had been more episodes of. And then Wednesdays, same show, different story, which is all about anthologies. I've always loved anthology TV shows and anthology films because you get different stories every week. And in the film, you get 2 or 3 different stories, and the tonal changes and, the genre changes on that. One thing I'd like to do with same show, different story is just show that it's not all horror and sci-fi, because horror and sci-fi are the anthologies that get talked about all the time. But there were Western anthologies, there were romance anthologies, there were drama anthologies. So I hope to get to talk about a lot of different ones with those. Then let's see, that was same show, different stories Wednesday. Thursday is the Pilot's Graveyard, where we talk about pilots. I've also done pilots of shows that were successful, like Three's Company and All in the Family, where the pilots are very different from the original show. But most of the time, it's just a pilot that sort of came and went and didn't sell. So those are interesting to watch, just to see what could have been if something had been bought. And sometimes you can tell why they weren't bought. Sometimes they're just awful. But sometimes that can be fun too. And Fridays, I've got 2 shows on Friday. The first one that comes out is my favorite Year by Year. And I don't think anybody's watching that one besides me. I'm basically making that for myself. To sort of go year by year through the 20th century and go, this is my favorite piece of media from that year. Songs, or we're going to get into radio shows eventually, television shows eventually. Right now it's songs and feature films. So I'm looking at a lot of silent films, a lot of Tin Pan Alley songs. So, for me, it's basically there to catalog what I enjoyed. One thing with this cancer diagnosis and trying to get over it, I do still go like every 2-3 months to get a CT scan. So it is kind of like sort of Damocles hanging over my head, worried about recurrence. So I think a lot of this has to do with me putting something out there that, will live after me, that people will see, and people who know me can go and look at and see, well, that's what he was about. That's the things he enjoyed. So my favorite Year by Year is going year by year through the 20th century. And then the Hall of the Wolf movie is at 5:00 on Fridays, 5:00 Central Time. And it's just an evening's entertainment is how I picture it. It's just something you can sit down and watch for 3 or 4 hours and get a lot of different things, all with sort of an overriding theme for the night. Then Saturday is TV Time Travel, where we, go for a network on a day of the week of a particular season. People have asked why I started out with 67, 68. It's because I was born in April of 1968. So I was born during the 67, 68 season. So I'm kind of working during my lifetime because I'm more familiar with that. And also it's a good space to find readily available copies of shows. I'll probably go up to about 2000, 2004, somewhere around there, maybe, because that's really when I sort of dropped off watching a lot of television, um, and went to, watching things online. Uh, so that's TV time travel. So we're doing, each week is a different day of the week. So it's going to take a while. We just finished up all of 1967 to 68, and now we're on 1968 to 1969. Also, thanks to Raphael and some other people who had suggested that we were at the end of each season, I do a Saturday morning show for each network, so that you can see the cartoons that were on Saturday morning, or at least hear about them. Sometimes cartoons are hard to find these days. Seems like a lot of places have bought them up and copyrighted them again. So that's one thing that does take some time here with doing these shows, is that even once I post them and YouTube says, everything's fine, they'll show it's copyrighted material, but they'll say, the owner allows it to be used on YouTube, so it lets it go through. But then I'll get an email, after it's been posted that, nope, can't show it, it's blocked. So I have to go in and re-edit it to find something else to put in the spot, or just stick a still in there and some subtitles to explain why it's gone. So I'm doing that fairly frequently. But Raphael was asking, that it's a work ethic. It's really not that much work. The talking head bits that I'm doing are fairly short. Like I said, I'm not going into deep dives really on anything and a lot of background and history, because there are other channels that do that and do that a lot better than I do. There's Pop Arena, which is doing all the Nickelodeon shows, deep essays on those. There's Oddity Archive that looks at a lot of different things in depth. But like I said, I'm basically playing it as show and tell. It's like, here's this thing that I like or find interesting, and then let's watch it together, and then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit. What I would really like to have happen is for some people to start joining me on those shows. I know a lot of people online, and I've put it out there to most of them, that if they want to be on the show, I'm doing most of it by Zoom. So I can send you a Zoom link and you can be on the show, and we can discuss whatever it is, or we can pull up whatever it is you'd like to view that fits the theme of that show. Probably not going to be doing a lot of them live. I tried some eMux and I tried Restream and some things like that, and it's just a little more complicated than I'd really want to get into. And I really enjoy the editing part, just going into Premiere Pro. DJB with Next Level Editing Academy, Diana J. Brody, also from Weber Internet Thingy, has been really helpful with Premiere Pro and showing me, what exactly I can do on that. So it doesn't, the talking head things, a lot of times I can do all those in a day if I know what I'm going to be talking about and I've watched it already. And then it's just a matter of editing them together and getting them up there. And I'm probably working about a week or 2 weeks ahead of time. So, we just put them in there to schedule them to be up on a particular day at a particular time, and they just pop up there. Now, I haven't really, like I said, I haven't really been doing anything to try to juice the numbers or get, more eyes on. I don't really like the sort of clickbaity things that you can do on YouTube by, making the title something like, oh, you'll never believe so-and-so, or, this is the most wonderful thing in the world, or this is the worst thing in the world, and having my face up there pulling a face or something like I'm shocked or I'm, disgusted or something. I know that drives views, but like I said, I'm, not planning on monetizing this forever, or ever. So I don't think it really matters that much. I'm looking over here. Raphael's been posting in the chat here, so I'm going to be looking here. Robin Hood parody show was fun. Yeah, I really was kind of disappointed in that one because when things were rotten, Mel Brooks doing Robin Hood, I remember that show being much funnier than it is. I watched a lot of them and only put up the first episode on that show because they just all kind of drag a little. Not his best work. Um, we'll have one coming up. I don't believe it's this week, maybe next week. Um, that was a parody western that wasn't from Brooks, but was by some of the people that have worked with Mel Brooks. And it's actually a lot better. So be on the lookout for that one. I think it's in the Pilot's Graveyard. Not this week, but next week. Let's see, what else did Raphael say here? Thing about the work ethic, like I said, it's not really that much work. Really, what takes the most work is editing together things like Radio Days or the Howl the Wolf movie, is just finding all the pieces and stringing them together and trying to level out the audio so it's not just blasting on one clip and then soft on another clip. Also, with Same Show, Different Story, I've been trying some things. You'll notice we started out with silent films, and I was doing the talking head bits by title cards. Then when we did radio shows, I had used some filters and things on my voice to make it sound like it was coming from a radio and just had the picture of the radio up there. Also been doing black and white films. So I've been playing around with the color and contrast on there to try to make my segments look like old black and white film. So some of those kind of editing tricks and things that are fun to do. Let's see what else Raphael says here. A brief history, were you in a band? Yes, that's probably one of my biggest claims to fame. I've done a lot of different stuff. I started out as a writer, had some published short fiction and things in different magazines and collections. That was back probably mid 80s. Then in 87, I met my girlfriend at the time, and she was interested in performing in a band, and I had been interested in doing the same thing. Couldn't play anything. She was a keyboardist. The only thing I could do was sing, and not really that well. And of course, I can't do it at all now. I sound like Leonard Cohen with a cold if I try to sing now. But we, formed a band with some friends and played around in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, a good bit in the late 80s, early 90s. Had a record, got some radio airplay back when college radio was a thing back in, the late 80s, early 90s, and got to play around to the Southeast a good bit and tour around opening for other acts, opening for things like the Pandoras or the Liars or Dash Rip Rock. Probably the biggest thing we got to do was see the Plasmatics, being with them and saying hi. And but there were a lot of bands doing that same sort of thing that just kind of had a record and kind of came and went. And that's what we did for most of the early 90s, probably by, I think it was 93, 94 when I left. And they carried on as Red Giant was the name of the band. Now, the name of the band when I was with it was Burning Zoo. And if you look at the Howl the Wolf movie, some of the songs that we did are incorporated in there. And they went on to be a Red Giant after I left. And I still did some roadie work for them and did some stage managing work for them. And then DC Moon, who was the bass player and was really the musical genius of the group, that really knew about being in a band and knew how to write songs and stuff, went on to become, DC Moon and Red Giant, and DC Moon as Atomic Superman, and just all these other things, and was one of my best friends. He passed away a couple of years back, probably been 3 years now, from a heart attack, and miss him every day. Who's one of the people I could really sit and talk to about all of these kinds of things. Really piqued my interest in movies and television and comics and old radio shows and things like that. But yeah, we did. So I did that. I worked at a TV station for a while as a switcher. Back when you used to basically have to hit a button to go between the show and the commercials. Also worked in the film room editing film back on the old movie Olos with tape and cutting commercial breaks into episodes of Gilligan's Island. That was the main thing. I remember we were doing that all the time. But it was an independent station, so of course we were showing all syndicated things. uh, really got me the idea of trying to do a horror host show. I was going to pitch it to them when, of course, I got laid off from that job because the station was closing down. This was, in the 80s. Um, so, that's kind of my history. And like I said, I haven't been doing much of anything creative in a while. My wife is really the creative one. So I started, like I said, doing this channel just as a way to kind of get my mind off things and help recovery. So I'm hoping it's a creative endeavor, and I'm hoping some people like it. Let's see what else we got over here. Yeah, DJB is good people. Yeah, she is. She always, helps out with it. Everything. If I have a question or anything about something in Premiere Pro, uh, and that's one of the things. People have asked me, like, well, your host segments need to be better lit. They need to be better. Um, the sound needs to be better. Things like that. I was really trying to do this with no money and not spending any money. Just with the tools that I had at my disposal and not going out and buying anything. So I could have a better camera. I could have a better microphone. I could have, better editing equipment and stuff. But, I'm doing it with what I have and not spending, it's not costing me anything to do it. The only thing really I'm running into now is just having storage because these files are really big. And I'm trying to save all the episodes that I do because I do have to go back and re-edit them a lot of times to keep them on YouTube. But I have a big hard drive sitting over here on the desk. You can't see it here, but it's got like 5 terabytes or something, and I've used up about 2.5 so far. But so that'll probably become a problem later, and I'll have to buy some more storage and things to save the shows. But also found out I could run the shows after they come out of Premiere Pro through Handbrake and make the files smaller, which is a lot better for uploading to YouTube. Some of those longer files were taking like half a day to upload, especially if I was trying to do it at home on my Wi-Fi. But let's see, is there any other things we want to talk about here? DJB is good. The guy who drew the circles on the frames of film. No, not cigarette burns. We didn't do that because that's usually to show when you need to change a reel. And we were transferring the films. We'd get them in big canisters, like episodes of Gilligan's Island would come in these big film canisters. And what we were doing was cutting leader in, just blank film, where the commercial breaks needed to go, and doing timing sheets so that the person, and then we were transferring it all to videotape with a chain link machine to run it through the film projector, get it on the videotape, and then it was on beta carts that they would put into the machine to play, and all the commercials were loaded onto beta carts. One of the things I prided myself on doing that was, especially a TV show like Gilligan's Island or The Brady Bunch or something like that, had commercial breaks already in it. And you could look at the film, physically look at the film and see where those breaks were, where the fade outs went and where the long black sections were. And I would put the commercial breaks there. Now, a lot of people, when they were doing it, were just like, we need 5 commercial breaks in this half hour. So I'm going to do it, just whenever that happens to fall. And they would cut into the middle of scenes. They'd cut into the middle of dialogue to go to commercial. And it's just like, I thought that was horrible. It's like, no, there are commercial breaks where they're supposed to be. And even if you're not using the ones from the networks, just look for a fade, so at least it's transitioning from one scene to another to put the commercial in there and it doesn't interrupt the flow of the story. So I was trying to be a little creative even doing those things. So yeah, I'm hoping everybody has enjoyed it. I'm going to keep doing it. I thought I would give it, 6 months and see if I enjoyed it or whether it would just be work. And so far, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm still able to kind of knock them out. 8 shows a week is probably a little much. I'm probably, overwhelming a lot of folks. I might get more views if I just did like 1 show a week or something. So people had time to watch it and catch up before the next one hit. But like I said, so far, everything seems to be growing sort of naturally. So I'd like to keep doing it, and I'd like to keep entertaining folks and entertaining myself, which is the main thing. Um, so I like it, and I like doing it, and I hope you enjoy seeing it as well. I think I got up to Saturdays. We do TV time travel on Saturdays, and then on Sundays we do radio days, which is attempting to recreate a night of radio, old time radio, from one of the three major networks. You had CBS, and then you had Mutual, and you had NBC Red and Blue. So I try to go through the newspaper logs and figure out what was on those nights and put that out there. Yeah, shorts. Raphael's asking about shorts. I haven't really looked into that yet. I probably should be doing that because I notice a lot of YouTube channels have really started doing those. I don't watch them usually because, I like the longer form things. And it kind of reminds me more of a TikTok kind of thing, which is, probably one step beyond where I am now. I like to try to stay on top of things and stay with the new technologies and stuff. And I do have a TikTok account, but I don't really watch anything on there. It seems to me kind of like a video Twitter or something. That being said, I do on the main page of the Scott Freeze Retrorama on YouTube, you'll see links to my Blue Sky account, which is where I do most of my social media. I got off X a while back due to the proliferation of Nazis on there. So I have a Blue Sky account that you can reach me at. I didn't put my Facebook on there, but you can find me on Facebook as well. I do have my Letterboxd on there. Letterboxd is where I, find a lot of stuff. And I hang out on Letterboxd a lot, just reading people's reviews and posting my own reviews of stuff that I watch. So you can also hit me up there. But when I post a video on YouTube and it comes up, I usually have it set so that it'll post a notification to Facebook and it'll post a notification to Blue Sky so that people will see it. And of course, if you're subscribed, and I hope that you will, it'll let you know on when you log into YouTube that a new episode has been posted. And like I said, I hope I'm not overwhelming everybody with all of this. Again, watch it at your leisure. Some of them are really long. They're long videos, 3 or 4 hour videos, but they're meant to be an evening's entertainment. They're meant to be, watched as you can when you want to and you have some free time. Let me look in the chat here one more time, see what's going on here. It's asking about. Okay, Raphael's having to go away, and I appreciate Raphael, you showing up, and I appreciate everything that you do with all the posts that you make and letting me know about new things that are out there that I can share. So you be well too, my friend. And I think I'm going to call it a day here. I think I've talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Like I said, we're up to about 47 subscribers. Like I said, the high ends, we get about 100 and something views for like TV time travel. Low ends, we get probably 3 or 4 views for like radio days or my favorite year by year. But again, it's growing slowly. And I think in 6 months, that's, fairly good organic growth. So I'd really like to thank John Weber and Joe Townsend and Eric Kramer, the people that do Weber Internet Thingy, for getting me off my butt and getting me to do these sorts of shows. The other people on there, Oddity Archive, Lee Goldberg, who wrote some of the books on TV pilots, The Mummy and the Monkey, Dr. Gangrene, Count Gordeval, horror hosts on the internet. Let's see who else. 42nd Street Pete, good guy, talks about grindhouse cinema and sort of the seamier side of popular culture. But he showed me that you just need a camera and you just need to be able to sit and talk to people, and you can have a good YouTube show. Who else is RoboCat Productions? Big inspiration for what I do with Howl of the Wolf movie from what they do, so check them out as well. Fred Flicks, also a YouTube channel, FredFlix, does a lot of pop culture retrospectives and things based on like the month and the year. where he shows songs and movies that were popular, TV shows that were popular, magazine covers, things like that. So those are always great inspirations. Um, but yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. I hope that my scans will stay clear and that no recurrence comes up. Can't guarantee anything. There's no guarantees in this life. But if something like that happens and I have to go away for a little while, I will certainly let everyone know on here. So we'll keep posting them and they'll keep popping up in your feed. And I'll probably do another one of these unless people just demand it. I'll do another one of these when we hit a year in July. So have a good evening. Everybody take care, and I will see you later.